Good afternoon, everybody. We're live. It is Thursday. Hope you're having a great day. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online, PastorScottShow.com. You can follow us on social media, and you can call the show if you want to join the conversation, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Go to clip 1.
What is your message to the parents in California after that ruling?
Congratulations, parents. It's the affirmation, I think, of parental rights, that they are the ones who are in charge of their children. These children are not wards of the state. The governor of California does not have the ability to, I think, overrule what parents would like to have for their children, and parents should have the rights to their children's records and what's going on with them. I think it's a slam dunk ruling. I'm surprised it wasn't 9-0 from the Supreme Court.
That was Secretary of Education Linda McMahon talking about a Supreme Court ruling recently that has blocked many of Gavin Newsom's California rules about making sure that the state gets to take care of your kids.
I take offense at our policies and strategies.
So did the Supreme Court. Only 6-3, which I think it is a little troubling that that's the case, because I do agree it should have been 9-0. But this is a really big deal and a big victory for parents here in California, and it will reverberate around the country. With me to talk about it more is Jennifer Kennedy. Jennifer Kennedy is a freedom attorney, and she has been very busy, not with us for a long time, but it's great to see you.
Great to be back. Always good to be back, and so much to talk about. That decision that we just heard Linda McMahon talking about, that's the Mirabelli case, and it is nothing short of historic. It's historic in the way that suddenly, unfortunately, we actually have to have our Supreme Court litigating, number one, parents' rights over their own children. But number two, really, whether a school can secretly, socially transition a child into the opposite sex, whether there's a right there or not. Hard to believe we're there, but we were, and the Supreme Court came out swinging, in my opinion, saying that absolutely parents' rights are paramount.
You know, it's one of those things where we shouldn't have to say it, but we do, right? Remember, I mean, it was even part of the State of the Union show. Remember?
Yes, it was.
When we had that, and even Trump says, I can't believe we even have to talk about this. And then he looked over and he said,
yes.
These people are crazy.
You know, let's talk about this case, because since it is going that far, and I am a little concerned that it was 6-3. Because it should have been 9-0. You know, there's actually a lot of 9-0 decisions. People, and you're having some experience with the Supreme Court, which is very cool in your legal profession. But the Supremes actually are not quite as biased as people say on a lot of stuff. But when it comes to this, they sure are.
When it comes to this, it is a religion sometimes for the people who are on the side of the cult of transgenderism, as I call it. So it's important to understand the Supreme Court's ruling. It's important to understand, what did they just rule on? And here's the deal. In Mirabelli v. Olson, which is how this case began, it's a federal court case down in the Southern District, and two teachers opposed their school district's policy that they were going to have to lie to parents about a trans-identifying child on campus, or they're going to have to lie to children about biology. Right. And tell kids that, yes, you can be the opposite sex, which, of course, was anathema, absolutely, against their religious faith. And they sued because this is violating their faith. And in a massive victory, here's what was so amazing. After months and months, years really, of litigation, the federal court ruled that, yes, the state of California has been secretly transitioning children behind parents' backs. They've been doing that by having the Cal Department of Ed basically tell schools that there's a law that if there's a transgender identifying child on campus, you can't tell that parent unless the child agrees. That was the big lie.
And there is no law.
There is no law.
That whole thing's not true.
That's correct. That was the big lie that started more than a decade ago with the passage of an assembly bill called AB 1266. And I call that the Sports and Bathrooms Bill. What it did was it just added one little sentence to a section in the education code that said the school cannot prevent a child from being in the bathrooms, using the bathrooms of, or joining the sports team of the gender that corresponds with the child's gender identity rather than his or her sex. They can be, period. That a school, and that is how the state of California, the legislature, put boys in girls' locker rooms.
You know, every time this comes up, it is just, it's hard to even talk about because it makes no sense. And I realize that, you know, kids are always going through things, right? But 5 minutes ago, this made sense to nobody, right? This was, but it has been an agenda for a long time. So I think for most of us, some people don't even want to acknowledge this as a thing, or it's happening in that school, or maybe it's just happening in California because we're crazy. But it's actually happening all over the place, and it's been an agenda for a long time.
It has. It certainly has been creeping in the state of California since 2013 and before, but certainly in law since 2013, and obviously infecting the rest of the nation. We see these stories on the TV news about all these other school districts where parents are angrily talking to the school board, where boys are in girls' sports, etc. So here's jump ahead. After that AB 1266 was put into place, the California Department of Education basically told schools, this is a law, you have to keep this secret from parents. And schools swallowed that. They bought it, hook, line, and sinker. They began to create policies of parent deception, parent exclusion. They began to school boards would enact these administrative regulations designed to exclude parents only on the topic of a child identifying as transgender on the campus. It was insanity because think about it. Is there any other arena, any other area where a minor child can ask school adults to lie to his parents for him?
Right. There's nothing.
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
You know, the pushback would normally be abuse, right? Well, maybe the school thinks this kid has abusive parents. They might be right sometimes, right? They are right probably sometimes. So I can imagine you're, as teachers and admin, trying to protect the kid because of particular circumstances you know about.
However, you have to know in California, we have those mandated reporter laws. And teachers and counselors are well aware of what is required. You can't just guess. It cannot be prospective. It can't be a might be, maybe. It has to be, someone has to have evidence of abuse going on before they can report to authorities that they think this child is being abused. Unfortunately, the policy of the state of California, before the Mirabelli ruling, is that all parents are default monsters, default abusers, murderers of their kid, right? That is so wrong, and that is what the federal judge, got correct, which is saying parents are the biggest protectors and defenders of their children. They are the people who have the paramount right to direct their care and upbringing, and that is why he ruled for the plaintiffs in this case an injunction against the state of California. You have to stop these policies.
You're listening to the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is Jennifer Kennedy. We're talking about parental rights in California and where that stands right now. You can join the conversation if you've got a question for Jennifer. Anything you want to clarify, things you want to know, make a comment. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. This is the Pastor Scott Show. So when we're talking about parental rights, I'm a parent, and I say this all the time. When I go to a teacher's conference, I meet the teachers. To be honest with you, I don't care as much about the grades as I care about their well-being. How are they behaving in class? Are they polite? You know, what are they doing at recess, right? Or break. Now, my junior hire informed me he no longer has recess. I know that. I called it recess. He goes, we don't have recess, Dad.
I know, right. Get with it, Dad.
Okay, well, yesterday you had recess, but today, okay, you had break. Mm-hmm. But, I want to know. That's what I want to know. And the idea that a teacher would lie to me, or that teacher would be ordered to lie to me, or that the teacher would be risking their job by not lying to me, which is the case, that to me is just outrageous. Everybody, the pitchforks should come out.
They should.
For that.
And we saw pitchforks come out in the past couple of years where we've been arguing for parent notification policies, school boards to affirmatively say, you need to tell parents if their child is behaving this way, because the transgender identification is a maladaptive coping mechanism for something else going on with the child. The parents need to know. And what they were doing in school conferences like yours is that a parent would come in, and during the school conference, the parent would the teacher would talk to the parent about the child using the correct pronouns, the
Right.
correct name, except all day long, every day at school, they would be affirming that child as the opposite sex with a different name. That's ending as of now.
And the thing that's wild about that, right, is there's many things, but the conversation usually is if you're going to your doctor and your kids are wanting to transition or whatever, and then they say, well, do you want a dead daughter or a live son, right? And that your kid's going to commit suicide and this and that, they're suicidal. So, but when you take that into the schools, the teacher is hiding, therefore, the fact that your kid is probably suicidal. Does that make sense? Like the argument for doing it is, hey, which is not true, by the way, the whole suicidal thing. But the thing is that if my kid is that depressed and is going through these things, I need to know about that as a parent.
That's exactly right. And Rob Bonta himself is responsible for putting out the stats early on in the Chino Valley case that 86% of trans-identifying kids have had suicidal ideation. They think about it, and 56% have tried suicide. So I've been saying to school boards for a long time now, so you're telling me if my kid joins the suicide club at school, you're not going to tell me? That is 100% backwards.
Yes.
But that is what the state has been fighting to keep in place.
And it comes from the idea that all parents are bad, that's the default. And I want to come back to that because I think that's also a wild thing, that we have come to that place. And I realize there's a lot of parenting problems today, and teachers all have stories about parents who actually don't care, and they take the side of their troublemaking kid over the teacher, which never would have happened in my day. I get that. Yeah. But from a legal perspective, to do that, you're jeopardizing children for really an entirely separate, in my opinion, political agenda.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that we have had to remind everyone that the Supreme Court and 100 years of jurisprudence have held parents up as the protectors of their children, as the only people who have their best interests. And in fact, in the case, one of the strongest quotes that we heard coming out of the case, out of the Supreme Court, was that California's policies of parent exclusion cut out the primary protectors of children's best interests, their own parents.
Yeah.
And that's what the decision was. The great landmark decision was for California to stop those policies, stop enabling those policies throughout its school districts. And that's what the state of California appealed. They took it to the Ninth Circuit and they said, we're appealing this because we think this decision is wrong. And while our appeal is going on, Ninth Circuit, could you put a stay on it? Right. Could you block that landmark ruling so that we can keep lying to parents while we're making our way? And the Ninth Circuit, for whatever reason, agreed.
Well, the good news is that the Supremes did not.
That's right.
This is the Pastor Scott Show. My guest is Jennifer Kennedy. She's an attorney, a freedom attorney, as she calls, and she's working very hard on behalf of many people in many different areas where the government is overstepping their constitutional bounds, including when it comes to parenting. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557 on the Pastor Scott Show. Would you like to take a call?
Absolutely, anytime.
All right. Bridget in Whittier, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, go ahead, Bridget.
Okay, my friend let me know that you were talking about Gavin Newsom, but I missed that. But it doesn't matter because I follow Jennifer Kennedy on Facebook. So thank you, Jennifer, for all the work you do. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I'm a grandma, mama bear who goes to the school boards in Whittier, California, always fighting. And everything I speak up about, nothing gets done. They just pass me by. I have a cousin who sits on the board, and it's been hard to get parents on board, to come speak up. So I've been consistent the past 5-6 years, and it's been really a challenge. And then they just put up an LGBTQ center here in Whittier about a year and a half ago under Janice Hahn. So,
wow. Well, thank you for fighting, because that's exactly what we've needed all these years. Thank you so much for doing the work at the school board. And now, hey, it's never too soon to go back into that school board and say, guess what? We were right. And read them a couple of good quotes from the case.
I think that's important because I also think maybe some people think this discussion is over, meaning that okay, Trump got elected, and they did not go through with Biden's Title IX changes, and everything's fixed now. And the Supreme Court might have ruled, and they're getting rid of the Department of Education and all of that. But this is not over at all. I think people need to understand this is a decades-long agenda that
Absolutely.
is about other things, really.
Absolutely. And I think you're right on the point there, because we had that recent landmark ruling for a detransitioner, Fox Varian, and where she's suing the medical professionals who carved her up, basically, and who did, basically butchery on her body when she was in that transgender phase. And she won, that $2 million verdict, right? That seemed to shock the nation. And it shocked clinics into shutting down their gender clinics. It shocked people coming out of the woodwork saying, well, I don't believe that anymore. And I feel like everyone thought, oh, wow, once that verdict came down, oh, it's over. Well, it's not. What we see in Trump's State of the Union, what we see happening, in fact, today in D.C. is National Detransitioners Awareness Day. There's a huge rally going on as we speak. What we're seeing is finally all of the activism pushing through to the mainstream. We're finally getting coverage of this fight.
Well, and the lawsuits are going to be a difference, because then there's money.
That's right.
Right? And $2 million is not enough for her. But it is interesting how right after that, all of a sudden, gender transitioning for minors is not something the plastic surgeons support anymore.
They're walking it back suddenly.
Which the whole world, by the way, has a couple of years ago now. So we're behind.
That's right.
On this, which is an odd thing. If you just study what's happening in the world, the U.S. is 2 years behind where the rest of the world is on this, and the rest of the world has left.
Even Sweden, where transgender rights were absolutely championed there first and early, everybody has backed off of the surgeries for children and the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones. Right. They realize they are not only not good, they are bad.
Well, and that's, I think, something that also needs to be known. That's another reason why parents need to know. This is not, giving the Flintstone vitamins to your kid if they're taking, puberty blockers. It is, and the whole thing, it's reversible, was never true scientifically or medically.
Right, and you will still hear people say that, this is a pause on puberty. No, it's not a pause. And in fact, let's say you pause the puberty of a young boy, and he goes through this fantasy land of thinking he can be a girl for several years. Well, he's going to arrive at his 18-year-old body having missed the time that your body goes through puberty and you're now a fully functioning adult. That time has passed. You never get that back, even if he changes his mind, which most kids do.
They do, and then they have bone density problems and other things that are being shown here. Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557. Sam in Bellflower, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show with Jennifer Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Scott. I love the show.
Thank you.
Hey, will this new ruling have any effect on that new law passed, AB 495?
Okay, let's see. So AB 495 it should, although let me think about how we need to amend AB 495. And that was I believe the affidavit, the kidnapping by affidavit bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't, what, actually, it's in a different lane, frankly. The great thing about all of these laws is that the parent awareness is off the charts. The grassroots opposition is off the charts. And yes, it really needs to be done. That one is a separate issue. It's really about strangers taking control of your child just with a piece of paper, which is bad. But this ruling is a different lane.
Right. But it's all part of the same network of agenda that... and what I like to say, Sam, I appreciate your call on that, in something I think for all of us when we think about this, these kids who are involved in all of this, the ones who mostly eventually change their mind, or they decide they're gay, they're not transgender or any of that, but they've made all these decisions, all of that. These kids and the detransitioners are the first proof of it. They get abandoned by every left-winger who's been pushing them. They get abandoned by the politics, they get abandoned by the doctors, by the teachers' unions, by everybody who has pushed them in that direction as soon as they say, you know what, I no longer think the way I used to think. And I think that's what's coming. Just something for us to think about is there is massive abuse that is happening, and the victims, even if they're hostile towards you about it now, later, they're going to be the victims and there's going to be nobody for them.
That's right. And in fact, that's how you know a cult is when the people escape the cult turns on them. And that's what we see every time.
It happens every time. All right, got to take a break. I want to take your calls here, Ethel and Lori and others when we come back. The phone number is 888-528-2557. This is the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online. Jennifer, how do people find you on the Facebook?
They can find me on Facebook at Jennifer Lynn Kennedy and on Twitter at Jen Revere.
At Jen Revere. We'll be back as the Thursday edition of the Pastor Scott Show continues. Stay tuned. Pastor Scott Show, we're live. It's Thursday on the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557 is the number, 888-528-2557. Go to 31.
In the three schools, this is the most welcoming. Okay. Especially of individuals of an alternative lifestyle. Got it. We've had a few transgender students come through here. Again, we can't offer gender-affirming care. We can give some therapy, but due to the new federal mandates, we can't call it gender-affirming therapy. Okay. We call it identity therapy. Basically, it hasn't changed. Okay. It's just the way we have to name it in order for billing to take place.
Right, so if you call it one thing, then you can be reimbursed or something like that?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That is part of a video from an undercover investigation that happened in Albuquerque, actually, at the Owens Administrative and Healthcare Support Services, which is a school-based, privately owned healthcare center in Albuquerque, where basically what they're doing is just changing the terms to get around federal regulations about not doing the transgender cares and hiding things from parents. And that is very likely happening here and everywhere else, just changing the terms. With me is Jennifer Kennedy. She is an attorney who is going to be right spot on when it comes to terms and why words matter. That's one of the reasons we need lawyers. So she's a freedom attorney. We're talking about this, and I'll get your calls here in just a minute. 888-528-2557. Lori and Ethel will get right to you. In fact, let's go to Lori's call because I think it's going to be relevant to where we're headed right here. Lori in Santa Barbara, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
I wanted to share with you my experience. I had agreed to send my daughter to a alternative type school so she could catch up on some units when she was in high school. And this was during the COVID time, so I could hear her teachers talking to her. And it was really alarming because they were just so much more liberal, talking about politics even. This was during COVID, so it was part-time on-site, part-time, and I could hear her on a computer. So instead of transferring her back to graduate from her original school, which was already limiting graduation activities, they talked her into graduating from there, gave her a diploma without my permission. I had to go over, I talked to the principal, I had to go over to the superintendent and demand that they cancel her high school diploma and send her back to the school because she's crying that she didn't want to do that. She wanted to participate in graduation activities. So I was told I was the first person in the whole history of the county to have ever done that. And I had already done that previously on behalf of my son, where the principal wasn't there that day, so I just went straight to the superintendent. And when you do that, you will see results within 24 hours. They're going to get back to you, okay? As opposed to if you're trying to deal with a teacher or a principal, because I went through that also in the past, and I was like amazed at their ignorance. Because I work in mental and behavioral health. I advocate for people in the school system or the legal system or the medical system anyways. So I just wanted to tell your listeners, you always advocate for your kid. You question authority. We're the people that, didn't pay our taxes and, raised up arms against our leaders. So you remember that. You hear from God and you advocate for your children.
Thank you, Lori, for sharing all of that.
Fantastic advice, I would say.
That's probably the best thing is you go to the supervisor.
That's right. Go to the top.
Go
right?
to the top.
That's just another example of the type of overreach we see again and again by school officials who think they're entitled to do whatever they want, who think they're entitled to make decisions about the children that are put in their care for the day, but not forever. That type of thing is constantly a horrific surprise to people when they find what has happened to my child without my notice. Because, of course, on the one hand, nurse can't give your child a Tylenol without your permission, but they're going to turn around and make her graduate from another school or transition her into a boy without your knowledge. None of it makes sense.
Right. And probably, some people, this is what they believe is right. That's how they've been conditioned, right, from teachers' unions and what's going through the NEA teachers' union thing a while ago that calls you a villain, that the parent, they use the word villain, which I thought sounded like it's a Disney cartoon or something, that the villain is the parent who doesn't think they should transition their kid. That's what teachers are being told, and it probably takes hold, with people, right? It's like, these parents are villains.
That is why we've seen what happened in California, because the school districts went along with this. Why would a rational school district actually conspire with the state to lie to parents and deceive them intentionally? Why? What adults would do that? And that's what they've been doing. Yeah. So in my guest is Jennifer Kennedy on the Pastor Scott Show. The Supreme Court made a decision in this case that basically says parental rights are going to be eventually restored wherever, like in California, they've been taken away. You want to make a point. We're talking about the specifics of that case. What happened there? Yeah, a lot of people don't know. Maybe they don't have kids in the district. They don't know what's happening. And this sounds like, well, why can't kids just be kids? But here's what happens when you have a trans-identifying child on campus and the parents don't know. In this case, one of the families that is one of the anonymous plaintiffs in Mirabelli, their child, a daughter, was trans-identifying on campus. They did not know. The school didn't tell them. The school was affirming her every day, all day long, as a boy, as a male identity. And she became so distressed in this world that she was in that she attempted suicide. And the doctor treating the child, that's the first notice the parents had that their child was in this distress, was that she had already attempted suicide. And that is the example we were talking about earlier. How can parents not know that their child is in distress or is exhibiting this red flag behavior? If that's what, thank God, it was only attempted. And that's the inconsistency with it, because anything else, the parents hopefully would be notified. I hope so. I mean, are they going to hide my kid's drug use? If he's caught smoking pot in the bathroom, I want to know. Yeah, that's exactly. They can't lie about that. They can't lie. They're supposed to tell you about bullying, drug use, even academic failure, et cetera. They're supposed to tell you everything. For goodness sake, you have to sign a permission slip for them to set foot off campus. So don't get me started on those protests. Unless they're going on a protest. About to say, there's no permission slip, but we're going to send you over an overpass and be in the middle of an intersection with a sign. Yeah, go ahead, kids, walk off campus. We can't do anything. Yeah. That's a joke also. But. Yeah, I know. Well, I probably would have gone just to get out of class and out of my science test or something. And I think a lot of kids did. Which for sure it is. That must be awesome. I'll protest anything. I'll go protest the new Dodger dog if it gets me out of class. Right, right. And they just let them go. They just let them walk off campus, which I wish somebody would sue on that one. I think that's coming because you've already had, in some other parts of the country, kids actually injured. Who got hit by a car. Running into the street, exactly. And different things happen like that. This is the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557. My guest is Jennifer Kennedy, and we're talking about parental rights and where this stands today. Let me go to Ethel in Fontana. Ethel, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm just wanting to say something for the listeners. Everything is going on with our children today. But we are responsible from the day that they are born, and we are accountable up until now with the gender change. But what I want to tell the parents or the counselors, let me back up. My family has about 4, but they've all come back to who they were really supposed to be. Okay? So you can dress your body up. You can change, you can have surgery, but you can't change your soul. When time comes for you to go home with the Lord, He takes the soul, not what you've dressed your body up with. So if parents or therapists would talk about those things. And I know some people say you can't talk religion. But when the end comes, every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess.
Well, at the end of the
soul.
yeah,
Talk about the soul.
Ethel, thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. You know, it's a spiritual issue at the end of the day, right? Because the other agendas it's the cultural Marxism, it's the destruction of the family. It's all part of that agenda that is written down. There are books with binders that say, binding, and you can go find, that are discussing, no, we want to go after...
How to do it.
Yeah, we're going after the children, not because we care about the kids, but because we want to disrupt the family. That's what Engels and Marx wrote about if you wanted to have a cultural revolution.
That's what Mao did.
That's what Mao did
That's
in
what
that
they did in
revolution.
Iran.
And then he murdered you if you didn't want to agree.
That's right.
Iran, and,
With the revolution, certainly.
Yeah.
In 79.
And that's, when we're looking at what's happening in Iran right now, one of the things people should remember is that a lot of people were for that and for that revolution and brought those mullahs in, and they just lied about their agenda. Their agenda was democracy and to defeat inflation and to build the culture as the direction it was going. And it was a fairly modern culture. And 10 minutes after they took power, they started killing those same revolutionaries.
That's right.
That's what always happens.
That's right.
When you're the revolutionary, as soon as the revolution happens, the new leaders kill the revolutionaries.
Pick off all those people that were willing to do something.
Because they don't want, they don't want you to do that to them. That's how that works. 888-528-2557. Can you stay another segment? We're almost running into a break here.
Absolutely.
Are you able to do that?
Yeah.
We're talking about parents' rights and where that stands today, and just having a conversation with you about this, because I think one of the things, like we talked about, how I think these kids are in jeopardy because they're going to be abandoned as soon as this is not the politically correct direction of things. In the meantime, you've got lots of kids getting hurt. You've got girls who aren't getting the trophies they should get in the high schools, and you've got the weird bathroom issue, which is just stunning to me that that's a thing, that anybody puts up with that anywhere. And then the deeper political issues that are there. My guest is Jennifer Kennedy. How do people find you online, Jennifer?
Online, you can find me on Twitter at Jen Revere, and on Facebook at Jennifer Lynn Kennedy.
Twitter X.
Twix.
I don't think people call it X.
You're right.
As much as Elon wants that.
It's not as catchy to say that out loud.
I
Sometimes
like Twitter X, though.
Yeah.
He should just, give in to that. All right. Well, now that you've heard that, probably Elon. This is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. PastorScottShow.com. Phone number is 888-528-2557. We'll be back as the Thursday edition continues live. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online, PastorScottShow.com. We'll be right back with your calls and Jennifer Kennedy in a moment. I want to remind you that our ministry of the month is Dignity Freedom Network. You can go to KKLA.com and you can click on the link that's at the top of the page. And you can help out believers and their families who are suffering from persecution in South Asia. They're facing violent persecution because of their faith. And for $40, you can provide a month of food, emergency relief, and compassionate care, including some legal care to families and who are being very seriously persecuted there. Go to kkla.com and click on the link there, and you can provide a month of food, emergency relief, and compassionate care through our partners at Dignity Freedom Network. kkla.com. Just click the link at the top of the page. If you're listening on another station, your ministry of the month is right there on your local station website. You can find it at pastorscottshow.com, pastorscottshow.com. All right, Jennifer Kennedy is my guest. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Eric in Corona, welcome to the Pastor Scott Show.
Hey, Pastor Scott, how you doing?
I'm good, Eric. Go ahead.
Hey, good. Okay, so I'm not as confused as I was, which is why I called, but I still have a question and a statement, if you don't mind.
Okay, real quick.
So my question is it Mrs. Kennedy's position or anybody's position is that you guys aren't necessarily pro or anti-gender affirming care as much as you are parental rights. So would you be in agreement if a parent, a mother and a father, or even an entire community, mother, father, grandfather, children, doctor, so forth, would all agree that a child under the age of 18 receive gender affirming care with parental consent? Would that be okay with you?
All right, that's an interesting question. So there's
It is an interesting question. I hear you on that. My personal answer is no, 100% no. And here's why. A little child.
I'm sorry, no on what?
No. Okay, you asked if everybody was consenting, everybody was good with it, would I be in favor of gender-affirming care provided to a minor child? You know what? I want to jump, Eric, to your first point. You're exactly right. This issue is about parents' rights. Parents' rights overall. So, yes, we're all about parents' rights. Certainly no one is anti-gay. For example, you hear that a lot, thrown around a lot. That is not what's going on here. That is not what the transgender agenda is about. So your next question was, what if everyone consents? What if, like you said, a community, the family, the child, what if they all consent to this supposed gender-affirming care? But it's my position, my personal position, that it is neither affirming nor care, because it is altering a child's natural state of being, stopping puberty, and also butchering a child, going through those horrible surgeries because of a lie. The notion that changing your body, you can change your sex.
And the medical consensus, even for people who are for that, are changing their mind now on that.
I only have a second. So your position is less parental rights and more ideology then.
There, you're talking. You have two tracks. You've got two tracks going on. When you're talking about minor children in the school setting, which is what Mirabelli was about, and what we're talking about today. Yes, it's all about parental rights to decide what happens. That they get to know what a school is doing to their child when the kid's on campus. That's a right to know issue right there.
I think his second part is he's saying, okay, so the parents are fully informed.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents would like to transition their kid, and they've got everybody on board in their circle with that.
And here's why I say no, 100% no, because that child cannot give his or her own informed consent to that procedure. And, okay, think about it this way. Can a parent give the consent, say, to the liquor store to have their child buy and consume alcohol on the premises? No, they cannot. Can they give their consent?
Because it's against the law. I mean, that's completely different. I mean,
we're talking.
But it's against the law
about
for a reason.
We're talking because laws are there to protect children, right? That's why you can't consent for a child to do that illegal thing. I think gender-affirming, quote unquote, gender-affirming care should not be provided to minor children because they, the recipient of the drug, of the hormone, of the surgery, they're the ones who experience the loss of the bodily function they haven't even gotten to experience yet. They cannot possibly consent to giving that up. So how can a parent?
I'm disagreeing with you.
Okay.
But your position seems to be, if my question is stated the right way, your reply to position still seems to be ideology.
Well, is it ideology to say that a child shouldn't get their driver's license until 16, or not be able to get a tattoo, or not be able to get a medical procedure? No, I'm asking. All of it's ideology if you want to put it in that frame. And the ideology is kids can't give consent. I don't think that's ideology, though. I think that's science.
Oh, and you know what I think, Eric? Let me ask you this. Is this what you're saying? Because you're saying I'm like pro-parents' rights over in the school agenda, but then you're saying, I think, I'm not pro-parents' rights when it comes to parents who want to consent to the procedures and the drugs, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, in a specific sense, but in a general sense, overall parental rights, it seems that you are pro-parents' rights as long as you agree with the position that you stand for, but not as much when it's something that you are against.
Look at who's the.
Here's the other point, because I only have a couple seconds. Because it would appear to me, and I told Pascal this, I come from a family of teachers. I'm married into a family of teachers. So, and I was on the school grounds for 24 years coaching. So, one, nobody wants to raise your child. I had 100 kids every year. Didn't have any interest in raising children or being in their lives or anything like that. So I don't buy into this notion that this is widespread, although it might be, it might happen. I just refuse to believe, based on my own experience being on high school campuses, I don't believe it happens. But here's the thing. If a child is going through a sexual identity or sexual crisis and that things, it's on the parent to understand what's going on with their child. The fact that a school teacher, a counselor, a principal, a vice principal is somehow responsible for the actions or the inactions that's happening at home, because not only was I coach, I was a father of 3.
I don't want to run out of time, Eric, but
you get what I'm saying, though.
Eric, let me interrupt you for 1 second. Okay, you brought up an interesting term that we're not talking about in the transgender agenda. Has nothing to do with sexual orientation or sexuality. The trans activists tell us always, you can be trans and you can be any sexuality. It has nothing to do with gay kids. And in fact, the trans agenda is regressive and it's homophobic, because the trans agenda tells gay kids, if you are same-sex attracted, then you're probably born in the wrong body and you're probably the other sex.
I think what Eric's getting at, though, is...
Thank you so much. And listen, I can ask you guys 1,000 questions. I love you, Pastor Scott.
Thank you, Eric. I got to go. Thanks for calling the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557. It does get to the other part of it, though. So... Some parents are all for it. There's a TV show where some mom transitioned her son into a girl, and it's all her. There's a lot of that going on. When we're talking about the law, when we're talking about protecting kids, why don't we let them drink? Why don't we let them take drugs? Why can't you smoke? Why can't you get pornography legally?
Exactly.
I mean, you can get it, but...
And I'll tell you why. California legislator Nancy Skinner will tell you why. Because she wrote a bill a couple of sessions back, and the bill was to not expel kids who are willfully defiant. It was a new bill saying don't expel them. You know why? Because she said kids are impetuous, they are impulsive, they don't know the consequences of their actions, and they're capable of remarkable change. You're right, Nancy. All of those things apply to these life-altering decisions that kids are being groomed into making with the transgender notion that is put in front of them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the big things is that this isn't something you just do and then you go, oh, that was a silly kid. When I was in high school, there was this goth movement, and everyone dressed in black, and they had the
the black nail polish,
dog collars they're wearing, and they're terrorizing the mall, right? But you know what? 10 minutes later, they're not doing any of that, and it's embarrassing, or they laugh, but it's gone. It's not a medical procedure. The worst they might have done is got some tattoo or something.
Right.
That they
no regrets.
Right, something like that. But that's the thing, is we have to decide as a society, how do we actually protect our kids from themselves or from very bad ideas that are trendy?
And one of the ways we do it is we tell them they are perfect as they are, no drugs or scalpels. And as Billboard Chris puts it, there are 2 sexes only, and there are infinite personalities.
See the guy who wears the billboard on the sandwich board? Gets those, yeah.
Yes.
Well, you know what? This is, there's a lot more to say, but we're almost out of time. This is the era that we live in, an era where people are, sort of rejecting what is common sense. And hopefully we're ending that, but I don't know.
It feels like in this arena we finally are. I feel like actually we are peaking on this issue and waking people up finally.
The lawsuits are going to help, because how do you stand in front of a jury and say, yeah, she was 13 when she had her breasts removed and she was convinced by her doctor and her school board, and who's going to accept that?
Right.
And, nobody.
Right. The Fox Varian case was
right.
out of the chute. No one was there. Nobody was in the audience. Nobody attended. And that has had ripple effect immediately.
New York lefty jury, too. Yep. Hey, Jennifer, how do people find you online?
Online, you can find me on Facebook at Jennifer Lynn Kennedy, and on Twitter X, at Jen Revere.
All right, Jennifer, it's always great to have you. Thanks for being on the show and taking calls, and thanks everybody for joining us on the Pastor Scott Show with all of this. And we'll have you back again soon. You've been busy.
I have a lot to talk about.
A lot of great cases. We've got to put a couple of things on hold, because that happens. But I'm very interested in some of the cases that you're working on and where that's going. Because
maybe making a lot of progress.
Maybe it's turning some other pages too.
Yes, it is.
All right, this is the Pastor Scott Show. Go to PastorScottShow.com. You can find the podcast, all of our social media links, including our new YouTube site, where you can find all of our stuff, podcast, our live stream, and our social media at PastorScottShow.com, PastorScottShow.com. Go check it out while we take a break on the Pastor Scott Show. We're live every weekday from 3 to 5. And PastorScottShow.com, you can find your local station and follow us on social media. All right, we will be back as the Pastor Scott Show live on Thursday edition continues here in just a moment. Don't go away. Good afternoon, everybody. It is the Pastor Scott Show. We're live on Thursday. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us online at PastorScottShow.com. Phone number is 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. We talk about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Go to 6-1.
For people reaching the end of their life due to illness, hospice care helps them get through their final days. Medicare often pays for almost all of it, making it very ripe for fraud. So according to a watchdog report, suspected Medicare hospice fraud totaled almost, listen to this number, $200 million in 2023. The CBS News investigation found that 4 years after California vowed to stamp out fraud, many hospices with red flags still remain in business to this day. Adam Yamaguchi shows us what this means for your tax dollars.
69-year-old Dr. Lynn Ianni was, according to Medicare records, dying in hospice care 2 years ago, something she discovered when she sought physical therapy for a pickleball injury.
I was shocked. They said, "You're in hospice." And I said, "What? What are you talking about? Do I look like I'm not?" So she goes, no. And when
Ianni's Medicare number had been stolen and used by a company to fraudulently enroll her in hospice care, which she obviously didn't need.
So you go out to play pickleball and you hurt your knee somehow, and then you find out you're dead. Well, that's what happened to her in the hospice fraud case. You know, this is a big deal, and I'll tell you what. This has been something that has been going on for a little while now. Actually, we've known about it for years, but online, people like Nick Shirley and other people on the interwebs are making videos all the time of the fraud in California, and in particular, medical fraud, hospice care in particular. But the big news here is that CBS News actually did it, which is gives you money, gives you a newsroom, much bigger audience. I know that the people on the YouTube machine, they get millions of views and people see it. But beyond that, you know, what do you do with that? Where does it go? It kind of dies out there. But when you have major media actually doing it, it can go somewhere. So imagine that you find out that you're on hospice care all of a sudden, and you don't have the medical benefits you think because your insurance company thinks that you have less than 6 months to live. Well, that's where she was. Let's go to 6-2.
just to think you're literally without coverage because of some ridiculous fraudulent thing.
My name is Adam Yamaguchi. I'm with CBS News.
A CBS News investigation found an industry ripe for fraud, especially in California. Companies accused of overbilling, real patients denied care, and it's costing hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. The hospice Ianni was fraudulently enrolled in is called Fortuna. When we called, no one answered.
And not accept any messages at this time.
The state of California increased monitoring of the hospice industry 4 years ago, identifying the potential hallmarks of fraud. CBS News analyzed every hospice licensed in LA County, more than 1,700, and checked for the same warning signs the state used, like multiple hospices packed into one building, or caregivers whose patients, supposedly at death's door, are discharged alive.
Now, this has been something that actually has been exposed for a long time. You would think that we would take care of this in a hurry, just like in Minnesota, where all that fraud, actually, that's been going on a long time. You can go back 13 years of videos of people who obviously know all those daycare centers were fraudulent, and for most of it, they did not get prosecuted. There were some prosecutions, about 80 or so, and that's good, but we're talking about so much fraud. Los Angeles County is now being described as ground zero for hospice fraud. About 1,800 hospice providers are in LA County alone, and nearly half of them show red flags for fraud, according to multiple reports now. Go to 6-3.
You can't throw a rock without hitting a hospice.
We brought our findings to Sheila Clark, a hospice patient advocate, showing her the more than 700 agencies with 3 or more signs of potential fraud. Clark took us through an area of Los Angeles that's home to nearly 500 hospice company offices in just a 3-mile stretch.
There's one hospice here that hits all 6 of California's red flags of possible fraud.
Well, there's no hospice there.
Legal office.
Yeah.
With a ton of mail just sitting there.
This provider is still licensed with the state. Clark tells us when offices like these close abruptly, it's real patients in desperate need who pay the price.
How does that make you feel?
Sad. Really sad, because I talk to them every day. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry.
You know, it is such a terrible thing, and people are getting ripped off. The taxpayers getting ripped off, but there are people just like these people in this story who suddenly are losing the care that they need. They're not able to use their doctors. It fouls up their insurance. And if you have a injury or you have a disease or something that is curable, you're not dying, but you have all kinds of trouble dealing with that. And we're not doing enough about it. Go to 6-4.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta is responsible for investigating the industry in the state.
I wonder how they can go for a full year and still not have their license revoked. Is that a systemic failure?
We need to be responsive to the red flags and react to them, not just count them, but do something, take action.
Bonta says his office has brought criminal cases for hospice fraud against 109 defendants.
We will continue until hospice fraud in California is rooted out.
Though Medicare is federally administered, the state licenses hospices to be able to operate. Now, California extended a moratorium on new hospice licenses through next year. Officials tell us they're still working on emergency regulations to hold those hospices accountable. Those regulations were supposed to be enacted at the beginning of this year. Nate?
Adam, this hits so close to home. My mom and dad, who live in San Francisco, are dealing with this with very close family members. Thank you.
And you're dealing with it with some of the hardest things that you have to deal with in life. And this is just hospice. There's one where he went to in that report, he goes into this building, and there's something like 90 different hospice organizations in the same building. There's only 90 offices in there. Every one of them is probably fraud. He knocks on the doors. A couple people answer. And one of them, it's an auto repair shop. And the guy's like on the 3rd floor or something. I don't know about you, but when I take my car into the shop, it's difficult to bring it up the stairwell. You know, to do that. Jose says you take the elevator. Have you ever been in a car elevator before? Those are kind of cool.
The Carvanas?
Those Carvana
yeah.
things where you stick like your dollar in the slot and you buy a car.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I wonder if anybody's ever, guys, obviously people do that. Buying your car from a vending machine seems like an odd thing to do.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, but so 3rd floor, and there's a guy in there. He's running, it says hospice on the door, but he's running a auto repair shop in there. So it's another kind of fraud. He must be getting government money. And I need to stop saying government money. It's taxpayer money. It's your money. All of this is your money. I don't understand why we don't know that. I don't understand why the pitchforks aren't out for this. This is a bipartisan issue. Nobody agrees this should be happening. This is the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. If you want to join the conversation, maybe you've run into one of these because they must be getting calls, from people. There must be, in some cases, there's got to be somebody somewhere who's sending somebody out. But I guess it usually isn't happening. They're usually taking your name and or taking the name of somebody who is unsuspecting, and the next thing you know, you've died, and nobody knows that you're dead. 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Nationwide, just hospice fraud is hundreds of millions of dollars in California. California has, in fact, charged 100 people and investigated hundreds of entities. So we're not doing nothing. In 2021, California banned new hospice licenses because of fraud concerns. So that's 5 years ago, and they've revoked 280 hospice licenses. So some things are happening, but there are so many hospices still, phony baloney hospices still operating. And most of the time, according to this report I'm reading, the enforcement happens after the fraud has already occurred, and it's too late. I wonder if we just don't have enough people to investigate. I think in a lot of crime, in a lot of areas of our state, one of the reasons that this becomes such a fruitful way to rob people is because there's not enough people to investigate the thousands and thousands of cases. Like, they get around to you eventually, whoever is investigating. But it's a terrible, terrible thing. This is the Pastor Scott Show. So I got questions for you. Does this fraud surprise you? Or do you just assume that it happens in government programs? Because we're seeing this in all of its money that is taxpayer money that somehow gets to you. It either is directly through Medicare or Medicaid, or it's coming through some nonprofit that's set up in a specific way that it can get money from the state, usually on issues of homelessness or other things, but it gets rerouted into something else. This happens all the time. And I wonder if we care. Like, seriously, as a society, because nobody agrees. No, everybody thinks, most people think, unless you're making money, that we shouldn't be doing this. But the other side of it is it's very well organized. And we should not be surprised about that either, that there is some great organization. Eric, I'm going to go to the voter fraud one coming up, because that's the next step that I think to myself. I'm like, hey, is there going to be voter fraud then? Like, imagine the voter fraud. I mean, people talk about it, and I think, a lot of people think that there is voter fraud. A lot of people think that people who are illegal are voting. A lot of people think dead people are voting. Everybody says this, and people on both sides say it. So it's not just the 2020 people. There are all kinds of people who think Trump cheated in 2024. I mean, in 2004, Kerry said Bush cheated, and they said that the voting machines were pre-programmed to vote for Bush in Ohio. There's all these different cases all the time. It seems like the loser always thinks that fraud must be happening. However, I wonder if everybody is right. I wonder, when you see all this fraud going on with all these other things, doesn't that say to you that there must be other things? It can't just be this. It's got to be all kinds of different things. 888-528-2557 is the number, 888-528-2557. So this week, a report came out where homeless people in San Francisco were getting $5 to sign a petition to put something on the ballot. But here's the thing. They weren't signing for their own name. They were giving a name and address of somebody else, a registered voter somewhere else in the state who they were signing for. Let's go to, looks like 15-1. What is it there? 15-1.
Hey, the line for petition. Shut up! Don't say nothing to work. They get $25 to sign a petition. They get $25? $5. $5. Okay. Did you have to have your ID? I'm not sure. Okay.
So no ID. You're going to sign a petition. You've maybe signed petitions outside of a grocery store or somewhere, and they usually don't pay you to sign. Usually the person collecting signatures is probably getting paid. I don't know if you know that or not. That it depends on who's funding it, right? But sometimes there's a lot of money behind these things that get on the ballot, and so that person gathering signatures gets paid per signature. That's why they're kind of pushy. I used to be, when I was in college, I helped people register to vote, and the thing is that the Republicans and Democrats were paying for each registration that you turned in. Back then, Republicans in California ran the state. I hate to say that I'm so old. It was a long time ago. Right?
California is in trouble.
But back in the day, there were actually Republicans in California, and they were doing quite well back in the 90s. And we got $2. The person collecting the registrations got $2 for every Republican who registered and $1 for every Democrat. So Democrats just didn't have the money. But still, you'd go sit in front of a grocery store all day and just get people to register to vote. You could make some money. In fact, we got a homeless guy. We literally hired a homeless guy who sat out in front of a Stater Brothers in Riverside. And he was there every day. And that guy made enough money off both parties, Republicans and Democrats, to actually get an apartment. It was awesome. I actually helped that guy out. But I've never seen it where people are getting paid to sign, and that is what is happening here. Go to clip 15-2.
What is this?
Right here? I don't know. What name do you got? What name is that?
The Crocker.
Jeffrey Crocker. We'll be here all day. Come back. Come out here. You only signed 2 of them so far, right?
Yeah. I just scribble and have it.
He signed 2 of them? Oh.
Yeah, don't scribble.
He signed 2 of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to lie. Keep getting long, so.
It's going to get long. I get $5 too?
Yeah.
And what is it?
Just sign it.
Just sign it?
Yeah. You ready, ma'am? First name is going to be Carol. Last name Sanderson. This is the address right here. This is the city, Avila Beach. And this is the zip code. Hold it. So remember, first name is Carol.
I get it. Yeah. I got you.
Sign it here.
Now, did you catch that part at the end there? She's telling him he's already filled out a couple of them. And if you hear, it's kind of hard to hear maybe in the background, but they're saying, give me some names, give me some names. And then while he's filling this out, he tells her, or she tells him, who he's supposed to sign as for this petition.
First name is going to be Carol. Last name Sanderson. This is the address right here. This is the city, Avila Beach. And this is the zip code.
So he now is Carol Sanderson from Avila Beach. Here's the zip code, and here's $5, and you have just signed as a dude in San Francisco. Carol Sanderson has now signed the petition to put some horrible thing probably on the California ballot. That's voter fraud. It is a crime. It's a major crime. And they're doing it outside. This isn't in some secret warehouse or something. There's tables outside in an area of San Francisco, which is full of homeless people, which is all of the city. Mostly, I'll give them some credit. They cleaned up the wharf pretty good out there, actually. I was there last summer. But that is happening. Imagine how many of those people are voting for other people. I wonder if Carol Sanderson is alive. I wonder how old she is. I bet she's in a convalescent home, because that's what happens a lot, is that you have to pick names of people who aren't just going to show up to vote or who never vote. And you got a pretty good bet if it's somebody who's a little bit older and hasn't voted for a long time that they're there. So you register them to vote. You get some homeless guy $5 to sign the petition. Later on, signs the ballot. How do you just stop that? And it's not traceable. My friends, these are signs of, the end. This is going on. Everybody on all sides should be upset at this. Everybody on all. Why are we not? I guess that's my big question is, why is this not a huge deal? This, in a time when we're trying to do voter ID and people are saying it's racist and all of this stuff, and we have this thing going on in broad daylight. Now it's open where people are being told, oh, here, sign this for somebody else, sign their name, here's their address, all of this stuff. It's open fraud. This should be a huge story. This should be nationally maybe the biggest story. Both parties should be up in arms about it. And it's got to be happening everywhere. Why do you think we don't care? I mean, you might care, but collectively, this doesn't seem to be a big deal. I think it's a huge deal. I think it's a major, major deal. And I don't think this is just one group of people. This is a group of people who have been given lists of names. Somebody has done the research for those names. Somebody probably paid, right? There's a bunch of money involved. You're giving people $5 a pop. There's a huge line of people if you watch the video. And imagine go downtown where all the homeless people are and set up a table. We're going to give you $5 for your signature, and people can just sign as many as they can get done. Imagine how much money that would cost you. Somebody's paying for that. And no doubt somebody's paying for the people who are working there. They're probably getting paid $15 an hour or more. Somebody's doing the research to find what are the names that we're going to tell people to fill out and sign for. My friends, we're surrounded in a culture of fraud, surrounded in a culture of deceit, surrounded in a culture where it's wide open and we all see it. And there's very little being done. Some is being done. There are some cases. Is it because we don't care, or is it because it seems so overwhelming that we just can't do it? Like with the hospice fraud we were talking about a minute, it's so much fraud. And it has to be investigated. You can't just say fraud and then people go to jail. You have to have a case. You got to build the case. You got to build the evidence. It's got to be enough evidence that a prosecutor would say, yes, I have enough evidence to go to trial. Then you got to have the trial. That means you got lawyers. You got lawyers on both sides. You got people putting forward motions. You got all kinds of different issues. It takes a long time. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. Costs a lot of money. Costs a lot of money to hire all those people, all the lawyers, all the defense attorneys, all the prosecutors, all of this stuff. I think it's worth it. And if we didn't have all the fraud going on, maybe we could pay for it. I think it's worth it. But there's got to be a way to streamline it. When you pray for our country, there's multiple things you should be praying for our country. Obviously, pray for our leaders and all that. But here's how you pray for Gavin Newsom in California, how you pray for Rob Bonta, how you pray for the people in charge, for our mayors and everybody in your city. Pray that they are convicted of crimes if they're guilty. But what I was going to say is convicted of their duties as governor or mayor or assembly person, and they do their job and they rid the state of this, because it hurts all of us. All of it is your money eventually, the tax money that has to get spent. Somebody's investing in all these people. That should be exposed. Who's paying all these people? Where's that money coming from? Is it coming from a political party? What donor is giving it? What's the real agenda? Why do you openly go into the city and hire homeless people to commit fraud? Every one of those people is guilty of fraud. People signing, the people who are passing the names around, it's a big deal. All right, this is the Pastor Scott Show, 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557. Maybe the reason that we struggle with this is that we're not told the truth a lot in our media. And I'll tell you what, there's some wild stuff that has been going on recently with that. And I'll share a couple of stories. It's not funny, but there's some funny responses to a CNN story that happened in the way CNN characterized the bombing that happened in New York, terrorist bombing that happened in New York, the way they characterized that to try to make you not realize it was a terrorist bombing by people who are actually terrorists. I'll share that with you, and I'll share the funny responses to that when the Pastor Scott Show returns. 888-528-2557, 888-528-2557, Pastor Scott Show. We will be back on the Thursday edition live. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Pastor Scott Show. We're live on Thursday. Great to be with you today. 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557. CNN has had a rough week when it comes to the fake news. I'll tell you about that here in just a second. But the good news is I want to tell you about our friends at Sanctuary Metals. Sanctuary Metals is a Christian faith-based company that will help you secure your future. And they specialize in helping you move part of your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver. And that's a great thing. If you've got an old retirement account, something that you had from an old job out there, or if you're over 59 and a half, you might be able to roll it over with no taxes and no penalties into a physical gold and silver IRA if you qualify. The best part is it only takes about 15 minutes to get started. The team walks you through everything over the phone at Sanctuary Metals. They handle the paperwork. They're the custodian. They do all of it. And your metals are stored safely in IRS-approved vaults, giving you real peace of mind. So call Sanctuary Metals today, 800-801-9877, 800-801-9877. When you call, make sure you tell them Pastor Scott sent you to see if you qualify for a no-fee-for-life precious metals IRA. You can visit sanctuarymetals.com to learn more or call Sanctuary Metals now at 800-801-9877. All right, Pastor Scott Show. Let's go to clip number 16.
2 Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments. Another special guest is going to be with us at the table when we come.
What's wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with that is that is not at all what happened in that. And the reason Mike Johnson didn't say anything is because it didn't happen. So Abby Phillips, and she's not the only one. There's been many people at CNN in particular that have characterized what happened. We talked about it the other day, where 2 men came to New York City and threw bombs at anti-Muslim protesters that were happening. So there are 2 protests happening outside of Gracie Mansion. They weren't protesting directly. They were protesting sort of against each other about policies in the state for how we're dealing with immigrants, how we're dealing with illegal immigrants, how we're dealing with the Muslim issue. And 2 guys came and they threw bombs at the protesters who were protesting against, protesting essentially the idea that, hey, there are Muslims here or other people who want to kill us, and we probably shouldn't be letting them in the country. And that's the irony of it. We talked about the irony earlier. But CNN characterized this as in such a way that you could hardly even tell what it was about. And they said it was an attack on Mayor Mamdani personally, and it just wasn't. Here's an update on what they discovered. Almost everything that was initially said, by the way, about these bombers was not true. One of the things that they said is that these bombers didn't even know each other. Just a coincidence that 2 guys showed up with bombs in the same day to the same protest. Number 17.
Ariane and Pedro, good morning. Right now, we're learning that investigators have recovered documents as well as electronic devices that help to paint a clear picture of the relationship with these 2 men who are behind bars this morning, and also possible future plans that they had. Now, these 2 men are accused of being behind this attack near Gracie Mansion this past Saturday. The suspects, in their late teens, identified as Emir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, allegedly told detectives they were inspired to attack anti-Muslim demonstrators on behalf of the Islamic Islamic State. We're learning this morning from investigators the pair considered other targets before deciding to head to Gracie Mansion Saturday morning. They searched a storage unit in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where they discovered a notebook discussing soft targets such as shopping centers, although no specific target was mentioned. The notebook and other evidence recovered suggests the two had been planning some type of attack for at least a week. This, as Balat's attorney claims, they had no relationship.
See, first claiming they had no relationship. Now they searched their home and they found out, they've been planning together, and they wrote it all down, which of course they did, by the way, all of this stuff. The point of this is that here is the obfuscation that the media is doing. Let me tell you this, in the New York Times, there's funny things. It's mostly CNN, but the New York Times headline for this was smoking jars of metal and fuses thrown at protest near mayor's house. So not bomb. They said smoking jars of metal and fuses thrown at protests near mayor's house. That's the headline that you saw. I mean, you're working really hard to not say it was a bomb when you say smoking jars of metal and fuses. That one should go down in history. They changed it later. If you go on the New York Times now, they changed it to homemade bomb thrown at protest near New York City mayor's house, police say. Of course, it doesn't tell you who did it or anything about it. It says the counter-protester accused of throwing the bomb was one of 6 people arrested after a clash with anti-Islamic protesters led by right-wing activist Jake Lang. I have no idea who that guy is or if he's a good guy or a bad guy or what kind of person that is. I have no idea. What I do know is that sentence doesn't tell you who threw the bomb. It lets you try to figure that out. It leads you away from who actually threw the bomb. Now, this is what CNN ultimately did. They had to come back and they had to apologize. But this is what CNN wrote. And Abby Phillips apologized, much to her credit, both on X but also on television. In fact, I'm going to play that first. Then I'll tell you what CNN actually wrote online. Go to number 9.
This morning, I issued a correction first thing in the morning on X for a mistake that I made in last night's show, but I also wanted to do so on air as well. I incorrectly said that the bombs that were thrown by ISIS-inspired suspects in New York over the weekend were directed at Mayor Mamdani. They were not. I failed to catch and correct that mistake in real time, and I take full responsibility for that. And while we do make mistakes, it is important to acknowledge and correct those errors when they happen.
I give her some credit for doing that because normally the routine is you say, you put something out there that everybody sees and then nobody ever sees the retraction or the apology. She didn't get it exactly right there, but she's not the only one at CNN who mischaracterized what happened. Several people did. It's like a memo went out that said, turn this into an attack on Mayor Mamdani and don't say who did it. So this is what CNN wrote in their headline on their website. You ready for this? Okay, this is what they said. 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. And we're talking about a terrorist attack, right? So keep in mind what we're talking about are 2 people who planned for over a week to go kill people with bombs that they made in New York City. Okay, that's what actually occurred. And they pledged their allegiance to ISIS, by the way. There's no mistaking why they did it, what their motivation was. They wanted to kill people in the name of ISIS. They pledged their allegiance to all of that. But this is what CNN wrote about them. 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day of enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim outside protest at Mayor Mamdani's house. Here's what we know so far. Can you believe that? That is how they described the terrorist attack. 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. It's like it's a couple of guys, they said, hey, why don't we go into New York? Let's take in the museums. Why don't we go see a musical? Why don't we do that? Hey, what's going on over there? Oh, it's a protest. Well, maybe we should throw one of these bombs that we have in the trunk at them, just sort of casually, like it was a second thought. It's wild that that's what CNN put. They finally put a retraction, only online, saying this did not stand up to our journalistic integrity. I'm telling you this because you've got to know that we are living in a time that it's not just getting it wrong. It is deliberately trying to obfuscate what has happened. It is deliberately trying to not actually deal with the hard issues. Now, here's the funny part. The funny part is a whole bunch of people started writing into CNN with different stories, the way CNN would report different stories in history. For example, somebody wrote this. Here's how CNN would handle 9/11 today, if it were to happen today. Muslim aviation enthusiast boarded flights Tuesday morning for what could have been a normal day trips to Washington, D.C., Virginia, and New York in the abnormally warm September weather. But in less than a few hours, their lives would drastically change as their planes crashed in the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the ground in rural Pennsylvania. Here's what we know so far. Like, that's the same thing, right? That's the crazy, crazy thing that they did. Here's another one. Ready for this? A talented Austrian painter was injured defending his country in a war, but in just a few years, his life would drastically change as he entered politics with a vision of uniting Europe, only for his hopes to be dashed by his one-time allies. Here's what we know so far. That's Adolf Hitler. By the way, that's how CNN is reporting this. John Wilkes Booth strolled into the Ford's Theater, eager for a relaxing night out, enjoying the arts, and to enjoy a star-studded performance of the play Our American Cousin. But in less than an hour, his life would drastically change as he decided to protest the president, who was also in attendance. Here's what we know so far. My friends, we are living in a time where we have completely lost our minds.
These people are crazy.
It is something that we just have to be very, very careful about. You know, ABC yesterday put out a report. You've probably heard it, that the FBI is warning California, in particular Los Angeles, that there would actually be a drone attack from Iran in California. And I heard that yesterday. That doesn't surprise me. I'm a little cynical in that world, and I'm like, you know, when I was a kid, we learned that we're protected by two oceans, and no one's ever going to attack us. I'm sorry, but with drones and intercontinental missiles, those days are over. It's possible, right, that even some country like that would do that. So I heard it, and I thought, well, that's not news to me. But it turns out that actually the FBI, before the war even started in Iran, said, you know, intentionally, what ABC did was they omitted the fact that all of this was based on one single unverified report, and they just passed it along to the LAPD and other organizations in California. The initial FBI memo proves that this was just a typical warning. Hey, this is unverified, but we've heard this, and maybe it's going to happen. And I tell you that, too, if you're staring out at the water waiting for the drones to arrive, they're probably not. Right? It's not even necessarily a real warning. It's just, hey, we got this information. It's unverified. We're going to pass it along. And by the way, they got it almost a month ago. It was before the war even started. I'll bet we've had many of those, by the way. Talk to people in law enforcement. There's terrorist warnings all the time. And some of them are prevented. We have to be sharp as people today because we're not being told the truth about a lot. All right. Pastor Scott Show. Go to pastorscottshow.com to connect with us online. 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557. You can call now. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back as the Thursday edition of the Pastor Scott Show continues in just a moment, and we'll give a little update on some other things going on in the news when we come back. Stay tuned. Hey, one of the things that's important to do in your life is to take care of your health. And sleep apnea affects millions of Americans. It causes all kinds of health problems, including heart attack and stroke, Alzheimer's disease, and many other things. About 177 different ailments they think are caused, at least in part, by sleep apnea. Because what's happening is when you're not breathing right, you are not getting enough oxygen to your brain and to your heart and to other parts of your body that need that oxygen while you sleep. Sleep apnea this is why it's dangerous. Most people have to go get one of those CPAP machines, and that is necessary for a lot of people. But for many of us, there's another solution, and it's worked for me. I went to go see Dr. Eddie Simon in Los Angeles. Dr. Eddie Simon's created a mouthpiece for me and my sleep apnea that has worked perfectly. It stopped my snoring. It opened up my airway. I breathe great. I wake up feeling refreshed. It resolved my sleep apnea. It's custom made. He'll do it right here in your office. This could work for you. Go see Dr. Eddie Simon at 800-92-SMILE. Call him at 800-92-SMILE, 800-927-6453. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're live. It's Thursday on the Pastor Scott Show, final segment. Hey, special announcement. Our Called and Equipped Ladies Conference is coming up. Gathering for Women, Soul Care Gathering for Women. It is next Thursday, a week from today, March 19th, from 11 to 2 at Brookside Golf Club in Pasadena. You can get tickets right now at kkla.com, kkla.com, or you can win free tickets right now on the Pastor Scott Show. I'm going to tell you how to do that real quick. Okay, you need to text the word called. I'm going to give you a phone number, and this phone number that I'm going to give you now is not the show number. So this number, the only purpose for this number is winning these tickets, and it's a text number. You're going to text the word called, C-A-L-L-E-D. Right now, text the word called to 866-347-4959, 866-347-4959. Text the word called to 866-347-4959. We will be taking the ninth texter. The ninth texter will win 2 tickets to Called and Equipped Soul Care Gathering for Women. It's next Thursday, March 19th, from 11 to 2 at the Brookside Golf Club in Pasadena, right by the Rose Bowl. The keynote speaker is Becky Brown from New Life Live. Comedian Amberly Neese will be there, and plus panelists Cindy Fay, Sue Fries, Jackie Mack Harris, and others. You're going to have a great time. The reason for this is it's for women who are serving somehow in your church, whether you're the staff person or the wife of a staff person, or you're a volunteer of any kind, whatever it is that you do at your church. This is for you. It's a ladies event, so ladies only. It's only for you, ladies. And even if you don't have an official role, but you know you're adding value at your church every Sunday because you do something, please come to Called and Equipped. You can buy your tickets now at kkla.com. Just click on the Called and Equipped banner, and you can get your tickets right now. You want to get them before they sell out, or you can try to win your tickets. And maybe if you already have tickets, you can still try to win tickets, and you can give them away, invite a friend. The number again to text the word called. Text the word called to 866-347-4959. 866-347-4959. Text the word called. We will text caller number. We'll take texter number 9. And make sure you check to see that we're going to text you back. That's how we're going to get your information. So we will be texting you back. Some things have a spam filter on text now, so make sure we're not in the spam. You might want to add that number to your contacts to make sure it doesn't go to spam. 866-347-4959. All right, we're talking about issues of the day from a Christian perspective. Just a couple of updates of other things going on. Let's go to number 7.
We have warned in Qatar for many years now that escalation left unchecked in the region would lead to catastrophic results. We are at that moment where we are seeing the catastrophic results across the region. Right now, as we speak, you can put a map of the region in front of you, and you will not be able to find a finger-pointing space where escalation is not happening. This is exactly what we have said from day one. This is the biggest I told you so in the history of I told you so's in the world. We have said from day one, left unchecked, the escalation that started in 2023 would lead to a regional war. What we are seeing right now is a regional war that still can be contained, but the trajectory we are going through right now is a very dangerous trajectory for the region, and we keep warning that, again, this left unchecked and conflict moved from negotiation rooms to battlefields will lead to even more catastrophic results for the people of the region.
That is Qatar's foreign ministry spokesman talking about the biggest I told you so ever. And what he's referring to is ever since the October 7th attack a couple of years ago when Hamas attacked Israel, the whole region knew that that is going to create a major war, much bigger, in their opinion, than outside of just Israel and the Gaza Strip, Hamas there. And they're right. Obviously, Israel attacked all of its neighbors, and we were a part of that a little bit. But it was very, very clear. Everybody knows in the region that Iran is behind Hamas and behind Hezbollah, behind all this terrorism and all of this stuff. And they knew that an attack eventually is coming. I mean, if you've been around a while, that eventually everybody knows this was coming. And here we are. So as you keep praying, it's not that easy. And it could go a whole lot of different ways. And we want to pray that this war ends quickly, pray that that regime is gone. That would be great. I think that's going to be hard because I think this regime doesn't care about the bombing or anything. You can bomb them back to 1,000 years ago, and that's where they prefer to be anyway, according to their particular beliefs. And So it's just a really big deal. Keep praying for that. And of course, it expands elsewhere. So today we had 2 different terrorist attacks in the United States, apparently. That's what it looks like. That's what people are saying. In fact, let me go give you a... Actually, I don't have that. I gave that one already. But there was a shooting at Old Dominion College today, and in a synagogue in Ohio, a person drove what appears to be a truck, or maybe it was a truck bomb, going into a synagogue there. In both cases, it's being called a terrorist attack very specifically. You know, more than some of the other things that people want to worry about, that's something to be concerned about. We shouldn't be surprised by any of that, and we shouldn't be worried in the sense that it's not derailing whatever God's doing in the world today. We like to say, you know, the world is not falling apart, it's falling into place, and that is what's happening. And all the deception that we talked about this hour with the fraud in the hospice, the voter fraud that was caught red-handed in San Francisco, people filling out petitions, voter petitions, and handing out the fake names and paying the homeless people $5 to fill out the fake forms with fake names of real people, of real voters who don't realize they're signing those petitions because they're not. That's real. The phony baloney news over there at CNN trying to reframe the terrorist attack that happened earlier in New York, all of those things should not be surprising. You know, whenever something's happening in the Middle East, people want to talk about prophecy, and that makes sense. You know, and the truth is, it's interesting to me about prophecies. These things get exciting, and you kind of look at it and go, what does this mean? But actually, everything that's happening is all of history moving exactly where the Bible said it was going to go. So even the things that don't make headlines, God is using those things to push us toward his ultimate goal, which is the return of Christ, and every knee will bow, and eventually death is permanently defeated. There'll be no more sadness, no more tears. Great things to look forward to with that. But, you know, this is not a new conversation either. The disciples asked Jesus, Matthew 24, Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to the buildings. Do you see all these things? He asked. Truly, I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be sign of your coming? You know, I think what they want is a date, right? That's what they want. Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of the birth pains. You know, I think that's something that I like to look at all the time, that when Jesus is asked, what's the sign of the end? You know, what's going to be our first clue? His response isn't to say, here's your first clue. His first thing is, make sure nobody deceives you. The first clue is deception. The first clue is when people are saying things that are definitely not true, and you know they're not true. I mean, this guy in Qatar, we just played that clip, they knew when that Hamas attack happened on October 7th that this was going to be much bigger than just that. That was pretty clear. And anybody who suggested otherwise, maybe they were hopeful, but some were just denying what was in front of them. We can't deny what's in front of us as we see the different issues in our world, and in particular, how much deception there is. We just need to not be a part of it. The best that we can to be truth tellers, to acknowledge whenever it is that we don't get the truth out on something that we say, and point people to Christ. All of these things, you get a news report that says, oh, they're going to bomb Los Angeles. You know what? Maybe that'll happen one day. I don't think that's happening today, but maybe that does. You know what? There's going to be wars. There's going to be rumors of wars, and it's just the beginning. Point people to Jesus Christ. That's what you do with all of this. And then look at it and go, the scriptures are right. You know, whatever you want to say, you go to the scriptures and you say, where did the scriptures say we're headed? And then look at the news and you find, all of it fits together. It's exactly where things are going. This is the Pastor Scott Show. 888-528-2557. 888-528-2557 is the number. 888-528-2557. Just have a couple of minutes left. But, so what do you do? What's the response, to all of those things? Number one is you pray. You pray for your leaders, all of them. You pray that they get those things right, that you pray that we're not ignoring the signs, that we're not ignoring what should be plain in our world today. Pray that they make good decisions. Whether you voted for them or not, they're the ones in charge. So you got to pray for them and do all that. And then pray for the churches. Pray that we get the gospel clear. And then do what you can to help others. One of the ministries that we have here, our ministry of the month, this month here in March in KKLA in Los Angeles, you can go to your local radio station for your ministry of the month if it's different, is Dignity Freedom Network. And if you're a Christian and believer in South Asia, you'd be beaten. Like today, you might be criticized on the Twitter machine in the U.S., but in South Asia, you'd be beaten, your church would be burned to the ground, and you'd be driven from your home and left for dead just because you believe in Jesus. This is happening a lot. And right now, there are pastors who are being murdered, Bibles are being burned and destroyed, there are grieving families who are displaced, and so much struggling. Well, we want to respond to that. So our ministry partner this month is Dignity Freedom Network, and one of the things that they do is they provide emergency relief packages to persecuted believers. Each emergency relief package provides one family with urgent medical care, emergency food, legal aid, life-saving support services, all of those things. It's $40 per packet. $40 gives one family an emergency relief package, $80 is two families, $120 is three families with food, medicine, and support. All of those things. Just go to kkla.com. You can also call their number, Dignity Freedom, 877-374-2809. But go to kkla.com, click the banner at the top of the screen, $40 for each emergency relief package for our brothers and sisters in Christ in South Asia that are being horrifically targeted right now. This is the Pastor Scott Show. We're live every day from 3 to 5. Tomorrow is Open Line Friday. You can call about whatever it is you would like tomorrow from 3 to 5. Go to PastorScottShow.com to connect with us on the line. We'll see you tomorrow from 3 to 5. Good night.